The presidential candidates are back on the campaign trail today after a chaotic debate in Cleveland last night. President Trump will hold a campaign rally in Duluth, Minnesota tonight, while Democratic nominee Joe Biden is taking a train tour of eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania today. Here's what Biden had to say about the debate.
What I saw last night was all about him. He didn't speak to you or your concerns or the American people even once. Donald Trump broke his promise. He said he was running to help the forgotten American. As soon as he got elected, he forgot them. I'll never forget. You know, I understand what you do. Wall Street did not build this country. CEOs did not build this country. Hard-working, average American people given half a chance built this country.
A CBS News poll shows a majority of viewers say the debate annoyed them. Only 17% say the debate made them feel informed. CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe recaps the night.
How you doing, man?
It took less than 10 minutes for the highly anticipated debate to turn ugly.
Donald, would you just be quiet?
And it stayed chaotic throughout the night.
The question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
President Trump tangled not only with Joe Biden, but also with moderator Chris Wallace, who pressed him to denounce white supremacy groups.
So who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
Members of the misogynistic far-right group that promotes violence clearly were listening. They quickly added Mr. Trump's words to their logo. The candidates swapped insults all night.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
The president repeatedly referenced Hunter Biden, whose work in China and Ukraine during the years his father served as vice president has drawn scrutiny from Republicans. But a recent GOP congressional report found no actual wrongdoing on the part of the then vice president.
Just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it?
The two sharply disagreed about health care.
He wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
How to defeat the coronavirus pandemic.
Folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID?
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000.
And the economy.
You got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison.
You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety.
The president denied a New York Times report that he paid $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017.
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax.
Show us your tax returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it.
Mr. Trump also wouldn't commit to accepting the election results, referencing potential fraud without evidence.
If I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that.
Under pressure, Biden wouldn't say if he supports adding seats on the Supreme Court.
You're going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
And distanced himself from liberal environmental policies.
So do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I support
that means you
the
just lost the radical left.
I support the Biden plan that I put forward.
Ed O'Keefe, CBS News.
And for more on this, I want to bring in Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist, and Joel is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Welcome to you both. Great to see you both together again, just like old times. Leslie, last night, President Trump frequently interrupted both Joe Biden and the moderator. Was this a viable strategy for him?
It's very much Donald Trump, right? A barroom brawl, very unorthodox, undignified, but that's what was expected. And that was part of what we were talking about going into this. That style of the presidency was never going to change. 2016 was about style. And not only is Donald Trump was he taking on what he would say the Democratic Party. He's taking on the establishment. He's taking on the media. And in many cases, he's taking on the Republicans. And that approach, really signifies a couple things. One, that there is no middle ground anymore. It's very polarized. So in this kind of environment, I wouldn't expect anything less. And two, that's really going to be the contest, is do you feel, regardless of how you feel about the president, that he landed some of those significant punches on Biden with respect to law enforcement, the Green New Deal that he talked about, and even kind of the back and forth about what would happen to the Affordable Care Act. That's kind of where I think voters maybe end up walking away once they had a minute to digest the Jerry Springer of debates.
It certainly was the Jerry Springer of debates, for sure. Joel, Joe Biden had some phrases that will likely be memorable from last night, including telling the president to shut up and calling him a clown. What did you make of these comments from the former vice president? And despite the interruptions, do you think he was successful in getting his message across?
I mean, I think the former vice president channeled what tens of millions of Americans have been feeling for the last 3 years. I'm impressed that was the least of the eruptions that we got from Joe Biden. And look, what I've been constantly saying is the test for these candidates are you genuine? I think those were genuine responses from Joe Biden. To Leslie's point, I think the president and his style is genuine. So I think both candidates were on brand in that regard. I think what works for Joe Biden is that the entire narrative of the evening fit into the kind of the Biden theory of the case here, which is I am going to be able to pull in nervous people in the middle, people who in the past, in 2016, might have voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton because they didn't like either candidate. Joe Biden is 20 points more likable, and he's completely turned around those numbers. So he's got a bigger pool of people in the middle, people who are open-minded voters to pull from. And President Trump, his only path that it appears he and his campaign are going to pursue is to heat up his base and to really turn out the Republican electorate. So I think both candidates and both campaigns had a rationale behind what they were doing. We'll see if their strategies bear out, but I think we certainly saw the fruits of that last night.
And Leslie, something that a lot of people have jumped on from the debate last night, including the Proud Boys, is when asked, the president would not condemn white supremacists. And it seemed like a simple question with a simple answer. Leslie, we know his base is solid and is not going anywhere, regardless of what the president says. But how do you think that went over with those still undecided voters?
I think increasingly, Tanya, to your point, there's a slimmer pool of undecided voters. I think that is a part of a conversation we need to keep talking about, because in a highly polarized area, if you heard, you had Biden talking about that dog whistle, and you had a lot of Republicans wringing their hands like, why can't the president be clear in his rejection of this? But it goes back to the campaign, even in 2016, even in the primaries, when you had endorsements and radio ads and robocalls that were by some of these white supremacist groups. And he didn't discount it until late in the conversation. Why the president does that, we don't understand. But it clearly, if you've already made up your mind on the president, I don't think it's going to move you one way or the other.
All right. And Joel, Joe Biden would not answer the question of whether or not he would add more justices to the Supreme Court. Why do you think he sidestepped this question? And was that, a moment where he lost some points?
I don't think he lost any points. Look, I think it's a politically radioactive issue. If you ask Joe Biden honestly, I think he would, if he had his druthers, he would probably not want to lead with that as an agenda item, but he knows there's a lot of energy in his party to do that. I think he did what good politicians do, which is acknowledge that it's an issue from his base, but not commit to doing it. And that's what Joe Biden has done really well this entire campaign season. I do want to, just to the point about what Leslie was talking about with the Proud Boys, what you have to understand about Donald Trump is that actually is his agenda. When you think about, what he said related to, I think there was like a federal standard related to training, to sensitivity training. The president is aligned with white supremacists. So I really don't, I think one of his spokespersons were on TV earlier today and said there's nothing to clarify. I actually think that fully aligns with my understanding of it. The president is aligned with these people. He thinks the way that they think. Whether or not he wants to be called a white supremacist is a different thing, but his agenda is their agenda. So, I think case closed when it comes to whether or not the president supports the Proud Boys or supports what they support.
You're saying it's there, and people keep asking him about it. Go ahead, Leslie.
Joel, I was going to say, Joel is right. I mean, how many times has this happened? And then you go to the spokesperson or you go to the White House press conference and you say, is the president a white supremacist? Does he support these? I mean, how many times has he been asked this question? And this is a situation the president creates himself. Right? Nobody else would put this in the ecosystem, but the president refuses to be clear. His supporters are saying he's been clear, he's made a statement on it, but he keeps walking that line, which makes people kind of question why he would do that.
So, Leslie, can you also clarify something perhaps that the president talked about when it came to mail-in voting? That was another issue that got a lot of airtime last night. And again, the president attacked mail-in voting. And again, Joe Biden said that there is no proof to show that mail-in voting is fraudulent at all. But he did say something, Leslie, that he is encouraging his supporters to go to the polls and sort of keep an eye on what's going on. And I'm wondering if you could clarify from the campaign's perspective what he means by that, because that can sound a whole lot like voter intimidation.
I wouldn't go as far as that, Tanya, but isn't it raising or kind of, again, putting something in our ecosystem that we can't fully trust what the final results are going to be? What we know so far is that both sides are arming all of their attorneys. If anybody's going to make any money on this, it's the counsel on both sides that are ready to parachute in to many of these states, not circa 2000 when we were talking about Bush Gore in Florida and hanging chads. I think it's that on steroids. Nobody is expecting that any state is not going to be challenged, and so it raises the doubt about all of this. In terms of the strategy, it's hard to say, but I will say it's not going to be this electoral blowout, I don't believe, that people were hoping for. I think it's so highly polarized. Republicans in many cases are that silent majority that doesn't really turn out to the end, and historically it's about a 4-point advantage. So I don't really look at those things until you get to about 2 weeks beforehand. And this is going to have an impact. And the clear impact, though, Tanya, we don't know yet.
Right. All right. And Joel, would you like to weigh in on that? I mean, Joe Biden seemed to take the issue and say it was about the president not encouraging people to vote, not encouraging everyone to vote. What was your take on that?
I think the former vice president, one of his best parts of the debate last night was being clear, speaking into the camera and telling people how they should vote, that their vote mattered, and that they should feel confident in the system. What's clear to me from President Trump here is he knows that the way that this is setting up, he will probably win most of the votes day of, right? When you do the counts, when folks like Anthony Salvanto, when they go and they look at the voter rolls the day of, I think the president, by most accounts, is probably going to be ahead in a lot of the key battleground states. I think the president would like to use that as an opportunity to go and declare victory. But we know there's a bunch of mail-in votes. There's a lot of absentee votes. There are a lot of early votes that will still need to be counted or still need to be factored in. And I think what the president is trying to set up here is a game where he can go and declare victory and try to set up the narrative in his favor on Election Day. I think he's been very clumsy about it, like he is about everything. And so I think he's kind of given the game away. But that's what I see going on here. And I think what you saw last night from the president, he was just trying to advance that storyline.
Well, we have 2 more of these coming up. Let's hope next time we can hear a little bit more from the candidates on some actual policy issues. We might have to install a mute button. I think whoever is in control next time. But Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.